All right, today we are tackling a question that honestly sounds like it's straight out of science fiction, but it's actually backed by some seriously fascinating neuroscience. We're going to explore the very real power of your mind to physically change your body.
So let's just get right to it. Here's the big question for today. Can you build actual physical muscle just by thinking about it, without moving at all? I know it sounds impossible, but the research tells a very different story.
To get to the bottom of this, we're going to start by looking at a brilliant and really simple experiment that put this exact idea to the test. It basically created a showdown, pure physical training versus pure mental training.
The setup was super straightforward. You have two groups. For 2 weeks, Group A did the real work. They were in there physically lifting weights with their fingers and elbows. Meanwhile, Group B did absolutely no physical exercise, none. They just sat still and with intense focus visualized themselves doing the exact same lifting routine. So, what happened? Let's start with Group A, the ones actually lifting weights. As you would totally expect, they got a lot stronger. They saw a huge 40% increase in muscle mass in just 2 weeks. This is our baseline, right? This is what real exercise does. But this is where it gets wild.
Group B, the group that did nothing but think about exercising, saw a 13% increase in their muscle mass. Now that's not 40%, but it is definitely not zero. That is a real, measurable, physical change.
Let's just let that sink in. A 13% gain in physical muscle just from thinking. This proves something real is happening at a physiological level. Which, of course, brings us to the next obvious question. How on earth is this possible?
To understand how, we have to go to the command center, the brain. The secret here is that from your brain's point of view, the line between imagining doing something and actually doing it is, well, it's a lot blurrier than you might think. The scientific name for this whole thing is motor imagery. It's basically the brain running an internal rehearsal of a movement. You could almost think of it like a flight simulator for your body. You run the entire program without ever actually taking off. You know, this isn't a new idea. This question was posed way back in a 1996 study. Researchers wanted to know, does the same stuff in the brain light up when we just think about moving as when we actually move? And after decades of research, the answer is a resounding yes. The overlap is incredible. When you vividly imagine an action, brain scans show that your premotor cortex, that's the part that plans movements, it lights up. Your parietal cortex, which maps your body in space, it gets involved too. Your brain is essentially running the entire software for the movement. It just stops right before hitting the enter key that sends the full-strength signal to your muscles.
Okay, so the brain is busy, but how does all that activity actually translate into a physical change in the muscles themselves? How does the thought in your head talk to a muscle fiber in your arm?
The key idea here is something called potentiation. The easiest way to think about it is like warming up the communication highway between your brain and your muscles. The more you use that pathway, even if it's just mentally, the stronger and more efficient that signal gets.
So here's how the chain of command works. It all starts with a focused thought. That thought causes your motor cortex to fire, sending a very real electrical signal down your nervous system. Now, this signal isn't strong enough to make you, actually lift something, but it is strong enough to cause tiny microcontractions in the muscle fibers. It primes them, makes them more responsive, and this repeated low-level nudge is a signal for the muscle to adapt and get stronger. And that's the foundation of growth.
So let's be super clear here. This is not just daydreaming about being strong. You are actively training your nervous system. You're literally making that connection between your mind and your muscle stronger, faster, and way more efficient. It's a workout for your neural pathways.
And this isn't just some cool party trick or a weird thing that only happens in a lab. This principle of mental practice has some massive, real-world applications, and it's been a secret weapon in high-performance fields for decades.
Elite athletes are absolute masters of this. A basketball player mentally rehearsing a perfect free throw, a downhill skier visualizing every single turn of the course before they even start. They're doing this to perfect their technique, sure, but they're also priming their muscles for peak performance. They are literally warming up their nervous system before the game even begins.
This just reinforces the main idea. Every single physical action you take starts as a signal in the brain. So it just makes sense, right? If you train the command center itself, if you make it better at sending those signals, you're going to boost your body's physical potential.
So we come full circle, but with a whole new way of looking at things. The evidence is clear.
our minds can create real, tangible, physical change in our bodies. And that leaves us with one final huge question. If a focused thought can literally strengthen a muscle, what other systems in our body, from healing to our overall health, can we influence by training the command center itself?